Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dr. Rant. Today we're ranting about basically the corporate practice of medicine, and we're looking at an interesting article from ProPublica that was written back in 2020. This is 4 years ago from when I'm recording this video. Basically, it talks about TeamHealth, which is basically a corporate medical staffing company that's owned by this private equity company called Blackstone, which is the largest private equity company in the entire world. You can tell they picked the most evil name, Blackstone, they could find in the book of evil names, super evil names, evil villains, I guess. And basically, this article talks about, something TeamHealth does, which is called surprise billing, and this lawsuit that they got involved with against the insurer Molina in the state of Texas. And it's a pretty interesting article. It was written 4 years ago. The lawsuit has ended, and TeamHealth won the lawsuit in 2021 against Molina. And basically, Molina had to pay him $19 million. And there was probably appeal. They probably settled on something less than that. But it's actually, you can't find the appeal record anywhere online from what I could tell. If you know what the appeal was or if they got this argued down, make sure to put it in the comments below. But basically, they found that TeamHealth wasn't doing anything wrong and that they were basically just charging what the average price was in the state of Texas. So the article goes into a really long article. I'll go through about as much of it as I can. But as you can see, it just keeps going. I'll put a link down below if you want to read it yourself. But real interesting article here, talking about this lawsuit. They interviewed several doctors that work for TeamHealth, doctors that don't work for TeamHealth. And they basically talked about how TeamHealth basically employs physicians. And you're not really supposed to be allowed to do that. There's this thing called the corporate practice of medicine doctrine where you're not supposed to be allowed. Basically, if you to practice medicine in a state that anyone that works, like doctors basically have to work for other doctors and not for corporations, is what that says. Not all states have this law, but Texas does. And then they basically talk about how they get around this law in this article. So what TeamHealth does to make sure that doctors are actually working for doctors is they create a shell company in the state, and then they put a doctor in charge of that shell company. And basically that doctor is the one who's employing the doctors who work for that company. But then all the money goes back to TeamHealth in the end. So really this is just, they're still working for TeamHealth. TeamHealth, they have complete control over the doctor that owns the shell company. There's even a part in the article, and basically the interesting thing about this lawsuit is like all these TeamHealth practices came out in deposition and discovery. So they looked at basically these two TeamHealth hospitals in Texas, and they showed that this is a really interesting graph here, showing how much they billed. So they billed 1.6 billion. The actual costs were 248.4, and the profit was 26 million. So they basically, they made 26 million off of these two hospitals, and then none of that money really went to the doctors other than the actual cost. Some of this 248 went to the doctors, is what they talk about here in the article. And basically they're not giving the money back to the doctors, they're just putting that up to the shareholders of Blackstone, basically, is where that money goes, that 26 million. And there are, they do say there's probably some cost in there. But they do interview one of the doctors that owns the shell company, and he admitted that he never paid shares for the shell company, or he didn't really start it. He was just appointed by TeamHealth in this article here. And they also talk about this thing called surprise billing, which basically means that patients will select a hospital that's in their network. They'll go there expecting to pay in-network rates. But then TeamHealth will say, well, this one ER doctor that was there isn't in your network, and he's employed by us as a 1099. So they'll charge them an out-of-network rate. And it's unclear whether the patient actually sees that charge or if the insurance company sees it. But the insurance company was only paying the in-network rate, which is what Molina claims they were doing. That's why they didn't pay TeamHealth the rates they wanted. And TeamHealth says they prefer to handle this in court, which is what happened here. They say they don't want things to be set for them. They say they'd rather just argue it in court, which is what they did, and they won, which is probably why they like to do it. And they say they don't actually go after the patient. So they don't. They actually there's no record of TeamHealth ever suing a patient that I could really find. And that's what it. So as an alternative to going after patients themselves, TeamHealth says it sues insurers and demands higher payments for out-of-network charges. And they filed 38 lawsuits in 2018. So that's an interesting thing. So it's hard to tell how much patients are actually being put in the middle of this. The main way that it appears TeamHealth influences care, because they don't seem to be obviously influencing how doctors make decisions, but they have the responsibility of staffing ERs, and they can understaff them, making long wait times, and that can lead to bad patient outcomes, which is something that these corporate practices are being investigated for. We'll do another article about that. There's currently a Attorney General investigation into these corporate entities such as TeamHealth, and Envision being like another large corporate staffing company. But overall, a pretty interesting article here. They basically sued Molina in Texas, got drawn out. They were found to be right, and they even basically this whole corporate doctrine thing has been found that TeamHealth is violating it, but no one's willing to enforce it and kick them out of the state basically anywhere, from what I can tell. So put down in the comments below what you think. There are ongoing lawsuits. Robert McNamara here is highlighted. He was a former president of American Academy of Emergency Medicine. And he talks a little bit about kind of how he's trying to fight against this corporate practice of medicine and what they're going to do about it. And it talks about courts have scrutinized it, but no judge has ever ruled TeamHealth or Envision specifically violate state licensing law rules. But there have been allegations in several lawsuits. And even TeamHealth, this is another interesting part of the article, is TeamHealth and Envision. When you look in their kind of discovery of things they've said to investors, as I said, it is possible that they could be recognized as being in violation of state laws, and if that happens, they're going to have to basically remodel their whole company, and that they put things in place to shield investors if that does happen. So it's something they know that they're probably breaking the law on, but they are doing it under the knowledge that they're just going to fix it if they ever are found in violation. That's something that can happen, and something they have to tell investors that is a risk when investing in their company. Again, pretty interesting article here. Something that is 2020 still going on today. I think it is unfortunate that TeamHealth won this lawsuit, but the insurance companies aren't the best people either here, so it's hard to say. It's basically devil versus devil here. It's also interesting in the article they talk about doctors that work for TeamHealth. They never actually see how much patients are being billed, so there's a lack of transparency there between TeamHealth and providers, in that they really should be telling the doctors, this is how much money we billed on your behalf, this is how much we collected, this is how much we paid you. They just pay them a base rate, and they refuse to tell them how much they billed for that year. But pretty interesting article. I'll keep doing some more videos like this. Again, I think ideally you wouldn't have these corporate staffing companies staffing ERs. Ideally, they would be private physicianly owned companies, or they'd be hospital employees. That way, there would be more in line with the goals of the company. Wouldn't just be to make profit. They'd be more in line with taking care of patients and making sure the hospital did well as the doctors did. But thanks for watching, guys. That's all I ran about today. I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys like this kind of content, you want to see more, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all next time.